The practice of witchcraft is one of the oldest, if not the oldest religion on the planet. The idea that the energy you put out into the world through your intentions can be returned to you many-fold is tens of thousands of years old.
But is witchcraft for real, or was it just a psychological boost that added to the efficacy of herbal medicine by kickstarting the placebo effect? That's what we set out to uncover in this episode of
Is That For Real?
Perfect.
So, there's a little background for you. But is witchcraft for real, or is it just confirmation bias mixed with old wives' tales, mixed with superstition? What do you think, Deasis? Do you believe in witchcraft?
Well, I'll tell you what, the Christians sure thought it was for real.
Man, they sure did.
Ooh.
That was...
Our whole perception of witches today in America is because of all the stigma that they created about them, a small percentage of them, might I add, during the Reformation.
Yeah. And I learned
Good God.
in this research that it was all about the Reformation and the Protestant and Catholic Church warring with each other, basically for market share.
Yeah.
And that the witches, the people who practiced witchcraft, got thrown under the bus and used as a scapegoat.
Dost thou not believe in the Christ?
Yeah.
Burn them.
I shouldn't laugh. It was scary stuff back then.
Damn right
Estimates range
It's a
anywhere from 50 to 80,000 people burned at the stake to one claim says over a 300-year period, 9 million people, 80% of whom were women.
Wow.
One lady called it the Women's Holocaust.
Yeah.
Because so many women practice witchcraft, which back in the day, it was everybody did. Before the Reformation, this was fascinating. Before the Reformation, where's his name? I got his name. Professor Keith Wrightston, a Yale historian, said that witchcraft, that was the lore that every kid learned. Yeah. And like they would grow up and they would practice witchcraft to ward off evil and stuff like that. They were all calling themselves Christian at the time. It wasn't really a separate religion. It was like just a separate hodgepodge of spells that people would cast for additional protection.
You know what I think is interesting is that, in history it's portrayed as mostly women. And that's still true today.
Yeah, it's still mostly
women. Most of the people that I know that are into witchcraft and magic and really big into it are women.
I have a theory about that.
Yeah.
You know what I think it is? Because witchcraft promotes self-expression and independence.
Ah.
And in Western culture,
wow,
especially in the past,
that's
but
true.
It still persists today, are women given as much independence as men, especially historically, but even today.
That's true.
You still find that that old thinking still persists in some people.
That makes sense. That makes sense that women would gravitate towards it more because, it's very big on freedom and individualism. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you look at your traditional, religions or basically traditional mainstream religions, which, we're talking a little bit about witchcraft, paganism, Wicca, and all that. Paganism basically means, the word for it comes from basically not mainstream religion. In other words, if you were a pagan, that means you were someone who was not, it was a derogatory term, or used as a derogatory term a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, to basically say, oh yeah, here's someone who doesn't practice our mainstream religion. So getting back to the mainstream religion part and the Christianity and Islam side of it,
how do they
I can see
women?
why women would like this religion.
Of course they would.
Because, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, woman is subservient to man.
That's right.
Wow. Okay. That makes sense. Good point.
Whereas Although witchcraft is highly independent, there are covens, which are groups of witches who meet together. Not always, they don't do everything together, but they meet together, they have rituals together, and they are usually led by a high priest and a high priestess. So women have leadership roles in what has become to be known as the religion of witchcraft.
Now, that's a no-no in Christianity. That's a no-no in Christianity. What does the Bible say? Let the woman learn in silence.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Only progressive Christian religions allow women in leadership roles. The fundamentalists, no, they won't do it.
I'm not going to lie. As much as I dislike Christianity, I don't have too much of a problem with progressive Christians. I mean, it's like that church that we've been to a few times. Yeah. They're awesome. I mean, great people.
Yeah.
Not extremist at all.
Women in leadership roles, LGBTQ inclusive, they can hold leadership roles. They mostly talk about love and community. And, they've got a little bit of that, fall of man thing going on. But for the most part, it's very positive. It's a lot different from what we grew up in.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, it's a lot different than fundamentalist.
Yeah.
Which fundamentalists to me are every bit as extreme as the witchcraft that they prosecute. They will persecute. They will sit here and really rail on a lot of magic practicing people, for their extremism.
Yeah.
But they're every bit as extreme, in my opinion. And again, witchcraft is like anything else. It's like Christianity, it's like Satanism, it's like it's like anything else. It's got levels.
Yeah.
That's one thing that was interesting about doing the research for this episode is that you see that there are different levels, and during the Reformation they decided to focus on that one aspect that was extreme.
Way out of proportion.
Way out of proportion.
Yeah, I've got the word written down.
Yeah.
The law that they used
what was it?
I got it written here. So, maleficium.
I think it's maleficium.
Maleficium? Is that it?
Maleficium. I've got the definition of it right here. Because this is a big, huge part of the stigma. And it was something that the Reformation did. You can thank the Reformation for that. You can thank their extremism for painting the extremism of witchcraft.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible.
So here it is. There were many aspects of witchcraft, but the Christians during the Reformation, they decided to focus on maleficium, if I'm saying that right, or maleficium.
It's Latin, so I don't know.
It's where Maleficent came from.
Right.
The mistress of darkness. And, if you look at the early depictions of her, she's the evil conjurer.
Right.
And that's where they get that from.
The classic Western witch concept. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a Latin term, an act of witchcraft performed with the intention of causing damage or injury, or the person harm. In general, the term applies to any magical act intended to cause harm or death to people or property.
And this is why that's important, because it was only magic practiced to cause harm that was outlawed. Because as the Yale professor Wrightson made clear, almost everybody practiced witchcraft before the Reformation. It was completely common. Now, there were people that were specialized, that people thought their bloodline made them more powerful and they would go to them for healing and stuff, but everybody practiced witchcraft. Now, before we keep going, I do want to roll the segment on how many people practice it today, because you might be really surprised at the numbers. So let's roll that and then we'll talk about it. From 1990 to 2008, Trinity College in Connecticut ran 3 large, detailed religion surveys. Those have shown that Wicca grew tremendously over this period. From an estimated 8,000 Wiccans in 1990, they found that there were about 340,000 practitioners in 2008. They also estimated there were around 340,000 pagans in 2008. In another large-scale study in 2014, this one from the Pew Research Center, it was found that 0.3% of Americans, or around 1 million people, identify as Wiccan or pagan, showing strong continued growth in the community.
That's right. I can see why this doesn't surprise me, though.
No.
I've been following social media for years. And I have seen just an explosion of witchcraft becoming popular. You see, at least I'm here in America. And, granted, I haven't done any stats on this or anything, but from what I've seen and what I've seen on social media, you see a mass exodus of the mainstream religions, like Christianity and Islam, and you have seen a huge resurgence of witchcraft and Wicca, paganism, basically all of these Celtic religions.
Oh, it's
coming back.
So old. It's so old.
Just coming back. I mean, it's incredible.
There was a cave painting dated 30,000 years ago that depicted the god and goddess separation. We'll get into what that is and why it's important in a minute. And the circle with the 11 people surrounding and the one woman in the middle. 30,000 years ago. That makes it one of the oldest, if not the oldest religion. It's mentioned in the Code of Hammurabi, which is the oldest written law record, which goes back to 2,000 years before Christ, which is older by about 800 years than the oldest extant copy or parchment from the Old Testament of the Bible.
Wow.
So this is an ancient religion. It predates Judaism by thousands and thousands of years.
But you know what, though? That makes sense. Because Judaism in the Old Testament
outlawed
witchcraft, divination.
Yeah.
Meaning that it was at the very least a contemporary of Judaism, if not predating it.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
It does.
And another thing, too, I'm thinking about the Reformation, and I'm thinking about why it was such a problem. During this Reformation, it was a power struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got these people who practice witchcraft, and it's individualistic, meaning you can have your own personal relationship with God or the gods or the powers of the universe. So what do you need the church for?
Yeah.
So naturally, they're going to hammer down on them because they're doing that independent thinking and living an independent lifestyle, and they would lose power. That would affect their power structure.
Yep.
So, of course, they're going to demonize it.
Especially
focus on the one negative aspect of it and run with it.
With the Catholic Church, you could pay to have your sins forgiven, right? You could buy
Cut into our bottom dollar.
Yeah, you could buy indulgences. So if you have to go to the church to buy indulgences, but instead you're going to the local witch to get healed, well...
Or not even needing to feel like you need to get indulgences or confess and all that, and they're losing money.
The church
Thou must have money. Thy horse and carriage.
Yeah, it's insane. But I think it's important for people to understand what witchcraft isn't, because what we hear about it is what common Western belief systems were born from the Reformation and the Catholic and Protestant churches. All that stuff.
All of that stuff.
But that is all this tiny sliver of what witchcraft really is, and it's by far the worst side of a religion that is largely holistic, largely positive, largely based on healing and living with nature and being in communion with the planet and all this stuff. So first let's talk about what witchcraft isn't, and then we'll get into some more specifics about what it is. As I said, the common view was shaped by the Reformation. But the first thing I want to say about what witchcraft isn't is it's not devil worship. That was born out of the Reformation. Sure. They don't even believe in a devil.
No.
There's no devil in witchcraft. How could they be worshiping something they don't believe in?
Well, even for the few, fragments or groups who do participate in that, that's a small percentage. Even for the ones who do engage in that, it's again, it's like saying all Christians are this or all Christians are extreme. You know, you have your various levels, and the vast majority of people who practice witchcraft are no more extreme than the vast majority of people who practice Christianity.
Yeah,
Just
well,
regular people.
Every group has its extremes, but anyone who actually practices the religion of witchcraft does not believe in a devil. There's no such thing. So any group that does really doesn't even qualify as the religion of witchcraft. A big segment of in the West is called Wicca, or the Wiccan religion, but that's kind of a catchphrase.
Yeah.
And there's so much variation in between.
There is a lot of variation.
It's kind of like, here we go back to Christianity. There's like 12,000 different chapters or types, you know. So you can't say, well, this is witchcraft and this isn't, because there's just so much variation.
Call it a belief system, call it philosophy.
Whatever you want to call it, yeah.
You know, yeah.
It's not a cult.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because cults are groups that trade a sense of salvation and belonging for the ability to think for oneself.
Yeah.
They indulge in extravagant homage or adoration, usually to an earthly leader of some sort. Witchcraft is usually a very solitary belief.
Yep.
And the witches I know, because I know a few, they all practice alone. They're not even in a coven.
It's about one's own, belief and connection to a higher power.
Yes, and like you were saying,
again, why the churches would not like it.
Like you were saying earlier, it promotes freedom and individuality. It's one of its basic tenets. So you don't need anybody else to practice it. Therefore, it can't be a cult, because cults rely on that groupthink. And they just don't do that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work as a cult. Not all witches cast spells, which I have to admit, that was a bit of a surprise to me. Yeah. But they don't all do it. Now,
and not all witches are Wiccan, and not all Wiccans are witches.
That's right. And later on, we're going to have an interview of an actual spell casting witch that's a friend of mine that I know. And she's going to talk about her life as a practitioner of witchcraft. And I think you're going to be really interested in that. But not all witches do cast spells. They don't all do that. And the other misunderstanding is that all witches are women. The word witch is a generic term for men and women, and the word warlock is not accepted by people who practice witchcraft, because warlock comes from a phrase that means oath breaker, and they do not like to be identified by that at all. So a man is still a witch if he practices witchcraft. It's a generic term, so that's another misunderstanding.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what it's not. But what is it? So dump all the garbage out of your brain that you've learned about what you think. You know, Harry Potter's cool, but that's not it either. This is what witchcraft really is. Witchcraft is a religion that believes in a single power defined as the one or the all, which is composed of everything that it has ever created. It's pantheism, which means that the universe is God to someone who practices witchcraft. Now, according to the Wicca.com frequently asked questions page, since most find it difficult to talk to or call upon a faceless mass of divine energy, this supreme power is personified into male and female aspects as the goddess and God. This simply makes the concept easier for the human mind to comprehend and relate to. Some take this concept a step further, and they give it a name, like Astarte, Isis, Odin, Pan, etc., when they invoke the goddess or the god. In the end, it's a personal preference, and what a witch uses depends on what feels right for them individually. We get back to the individualism. Yep. It's a very private practice. It's not like Catholics or Protestants where you have rites and rituals that have to be done this specific way.
Right.
Or else it's heretical,
Right.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
Pantheism is one of the few belief systems that I actually do like and can make sense of.
What appeals to you about pantheism?
The opportunity and possibility of evoking energies through law of attraction to maybe manifest good things into your life and other people's lives.
Dude, you need to practice witchcraft.
No,
because you basically just described witchcraft.
Yeah.
That's really basically what it is. You put energy out into the universe, and
You
if
can
it's
manifest this
positive
cash
or
over here.
negative, you get it back. Now, they have what's called the rule of three, which means that anything you push into the universe, you're going to get back threefold. So if it's positive, you're going to get threefold positive back. But if it's negative, you're also going to get that back, which busts another common myth that witches only cast like evil spells to harm people. If they do, the religion states that they're going to get it back threefold. So it's an incredibly dangerous thing to do. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but if you really believe in it, it's not something you want to do, because you're going to end up hurting yourself 3 times more than whoever it is that you cast the spell on. So there's that.
Yeah.
I read another great description from witchcraft.com.au, the Australian chapter. It describes it like this: witchcraft is essentially a system of religious belief that human beings are an integral part of the all-pervasive nature, whether visible or invisible, and not separate from it. They are neither masters of nature nor superior to it. Witchcraft involves maintaining a state of equilibrium in nature. We receive from nature what we give to it. As a natural corollary, we must contribute to nature what we wish to receive from it in return to our contribution. In a way, witchcraft is based on the theory of karma.
Now, see, why would anybody hate that? What's to hate there? I think about the Christian or the Reformation and how they really just demonized it.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, what is to hate there? That's good.
Yeah,
That's
well,
good for society.
Sure.
The Crusades sure as hell weren't.
I'll put it this way. If everybody genuinely, truly practiced witchcraft, we would have no environmental problem in this world. Because someone who is a genuine, true believer of witchcraft would never do anything to harm the environment, because the environment is part of God to them. They're pantheistic. So they wouldn't mistreat the planet, because that would be an act of lacking devotion to the universe, right?
Makes sense.
It makes sense.
Makes sense.
Now, everybody who watches the show knows that I'm very skeptical, and I do not identify as any specific religion. But of all the religions that I've studied, and I've studied a lot of them,
Yeah, you have.
pantheism makes the most rational sense to me if you're going to have some kind of religion. Because if there is a God, right, an all-powerful creative force, however you want to describe it, how could that which was created be separate from the God that created it, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of impossible, because God would use his energy, or its energy, whatever, to create all this stuff where? Like where? Outside of itself. It would have to be itself. And if everything is part of God, then it makes sense to worship God in its created form as paganism, nature worship, witchcraft, whatever. I mean, that just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
From a logical perspective, personally. So witchcraft is one of the oldest, if not the oldest religion. I already talked about that cave painting 30,000 years ago. The reference in the Code of Hammurabi that dates back to 1784 BC, 800 years predating the oldest manuscripts of the Old Testament. You might be surprised to find that witches are not necessarily anti-Christian.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some bad
I've heard
blood.
of that.
There's some bad blood because of what's called the burning times, when the Catholic and Protestant Church were trying and burning people for being witches. And fundamentalism today, which says anybody who doesn't worship the way they believe is going to burn in hell.
Yeah.
So they kind of just push the burning off to the afterlife. But it's the same basic idea. I'm
Right.
sure people would gladly have you think they're going to burn than actually burn you. So there's a lot of bad blood, but there's not necessarily any built-in animosity on the witchcraft side. And in fact,
That's true.
I read a great quote that said, if one looks closely at the true teachings of Jesus with an open heart, you'll find some stark commonalities with witchcraft. It is only when one takes literally the sometimes frail misinterpretations of those who misunderstood the intent or used the teachings to suit their own political agendas that one sees wide differences in the teachings of Jesus and of witchcraft.
I want to talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
So many years, and for so many years, and I've had so many experiences of fundamentalist Christians condemning any kind of people who are into magic, sorcery, worship of the stars, divination, anything like that, including all sorts of witchcraft. And they have the inherent belief and condemnation that they are not in God's favor and that they're either going to die forever or burn in hell forever. But either way, they're going to have to repent and get rid of all that or be destroyed. If not outright condemn them right on the spot without any kind of research or education into the origins of any of this. But most of the witches and magic practicing people that I know, even Satanists and just really a lot of these other extreme, supposedly extreme belief systems, they don't condemn Christians.
Fringe is probably a better word. The minority religions, yeah.
Right. A lot of the witches that I know and people that are into magic, they won't condemn Christians the way that Christians or Christian belief systems will condemn them. They'll just say, oh, okay, well, whatever makes you happy, as long as you're not condemning me or you have a problem with me, I won't. They have a very live and let live.
Very much.
I'll love you and treat you well as long as you treat me well, or I'm going to treat you like a person because you treat me like a person. Oh, well, am I condemned? Well, I don't know. That's between you and God. They don't. Right. They're not as judgmental and condemning as a lot of the Christians or Muslims who will say, oh, well, you're condemned by God.
Particularly fundamentalist Christians.
That's true.
Which are always the loudest Christians. That's true. Because like we've already said, like where we occasionally go up the street isn't like that at all.
Probably they feel like it's wrong.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I have no doubt they would say that it probably is.
Yeah, and even though I totally disagree with them thinking that it's wrong, I do respect the fact that they will still treat you good. Yeah. Because they believe a lot like the people who practice witchcraft do. Well, you know what? I'm not going to judge you.
Yeah.
You have your belief system.
I'm not your judge, yeah.
As long as you're not harming me or anyone with it, that's fine. And I like
between
that.
you and God.
I can respect that. Yeah.
See, like, exactly. I can respect somebody thinking that I'm wrong. I do not respect someone thinking that because I am wrong, I'm less of a person. Exactly. Or I deserve to be mistreated, or it means that I'm condemned.
Exactly.
That's the part that bothers me. We should have healthy debates about what we think is right and wrong. We should. That's how we grow as people. Yeah. But we should not go around condemning everybody, and that's the problem I have with it.
Well, and I feel to have an unsubstantiated, in my opinion, an unsubstantiated belief that somebody is condemned because they don't believe the way that you do or serve the same God as you do or serve God the way that you want them to, I feel like that's a dangerous position. Because you can be very, very judgmental and treat people harshly because you truly believe that you have a better position with God. But no man can speak for God, that we know of at least.
Yeah.
So
didn't Jesus say something about not judging people? I think that's a pretty famous scripture.
Yeah. Right.
Judge not, lest ye be judged yourself.
So at the very least, I can respect progressive Christians in that at least, even though they have their views, which everybody's got the right to their own views, at least they don't condemn others. And they don't treat them differently because of it.
Right. You remember the psychic we went to? She was reading the Bible when I showed up. She's a Christian, but she's also a psychic. So for her, the two are not incompatible. Whereas for all fundamentalist Christians, it would be incompatible.
Right.
All right, now this is interesting. Spell casting is almost exclusively for positive results, not negative ones. See, that was new to me until this was a while back when I first started meeting people who call themselves witches, and I started asking them questions. I only knew like the Wicked Witch of the West, though there was Glinda. She was nice.
Yep,
She was
true.
all right. You know.
They didn't talk about her though, huh?
Yeah, no, but the whole White Witch, the whole White Witch, Black Witch, White Magic, Black Magic distinction doesn't really exist. It's really more, I mean, it's kind of like the Force. This is the best analogy I can think of. Like the Force is neutral. How you use it is what makes it good or bad. And from what I understand, witchcraft is very much the same. You're using the energy of the universe for good purpose or bad purpose, good intent or ill intent, but you have to live with the consequences of doing that.
Absolutely. And that could apply to any religion.
Yeah,
You could be a Christian, a fundamentalist Southern Baptist Christian, and pray for God to call down justice on somebody. Somebody could look at that and say, "Oh, look at that. You're using magic to call down evil on somebody."
Or you could pick up your sword and go kill them yourself, like in the Holy Wars. So what makes you better than these other people?
I want to add to this too.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm actually I don't practice voodoo, but I'm in a voodoo group just because I'm interested in different religions, belief systems.
Yeah.
And I will say, like what you just said and like what you just read, now a lot of those voodoo priestesses, they call themselves witches. And I don't really know the correlation of that and popular witchcraft, so I'm not going to sit there and talk a lot about what I don't know, but they practice voodoo. They call themselves witches. They believe that they also are able to manifest and call on these forces. And the vast majority are just like you said. They cast love spells, money spells. It's not all wicked, evil, I want to hurt somebody, darkness type of stuff.
Right.
In fact, the majority of it is just them, trying to send positive energy, love, or money, or better finances and stability into their life.
Yeah.
Same way you'd pray for God to give those same things to you.
I like the way the Yale professor put it. He said he referred to the spell casting as the psychological part of healing. Like they would use herbs, these specialists that people thought their bloodline made them particularly powerful. They would use the herbs, which he said probably had medicinal impact. But it would be backed up with the psychological impact of them casting the spell, which made the person think it would work better. Placebo effect, which we've talked about many times, is a very real thing. Mind over matter. You think it's going to work, so it does. And it would just further improve the person's response to whatever herbal treatment they were given. So in my opinion, even though I don't believe like in the actual witchcraft thing, anything that helps reinforce the placebo effect or keeps you in a state of positive awareness, like with the Secret. Like The Secret.
You can call that witchcraft.
Yeah, you could.
It's call that witchcraft.
It's basically the same thing. It's what energy are
Magic,
you putting
praying
forward.
to God. It's all the same.
It's all the same.
All the same.
I'm glad you put praying in there. Prayer, magic.
Yeah, what's prayer?
Law of attraction. It's all the same.
All the same.
So if you believe in any of those things, I'm sorry, but you believe in all of those things because they all work the same way.
You could say, in a nutshell, in my opinion, you could say witchcraft is the practical application of pantheism.
Really? Yeah, that's very well said. That's all it is. That's what it is. But I found a bunch of misconceptions and questions about witches and witchcraft that I thought would be great to go through before we get our resident witch on for an interview. And she's great. You're going to like her. First, do you need tons of training from established witches before you cast your first spell? Think about it. Like if you're going to become a pastor, you need a lot of training, a lot of education. They call it an MDiv, a Master's of Divinity. It takes 6 years to get.
Right, theology.
Lots of theological training. But the answer is no. Writing a spell does not require a coven, a goat skull, a full moon, as fun as nights with those things can be, according to this person. Performing a spell just means setting an intention and then conducting a ritual, be that lighting a candle or meditating in the bathtub to fulfill it. So it's not complicated. So if you have any interest in it, don't think it's going to take you a long time to start practicing this, because it really doesn't. This is one of the things that our interviewee told me about. Second question, do witches have anything similar to a congregation? We've already talked about that. Yes, they have covens. They're jointly led by a high priest or a high priestess, but in more recent forms of neo-pagan witchcraft, covens are sometimes run as democracies with rotating leadership.
Cool.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. It's not a cult. You don't have to have this one guy, with the, like on, what was it, the second...
The Grand Wizard or
Indiana
Wizard.
Jones and the... Was it Temple of Doom where he pulls the heart out and the guy's wearing the skull thing?
Oh, God. Yeah, I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah, it's not like that. Nothing like that. Do witches have a Bible or a holy book? That was interesting. The answer is no, because a Bible is supposedly the word of a deity revealed through a prophet, whereas witchcraft is pagan folk religion of personal experience, back to freedom and individuality.
Yep.
So it wouldn't make any sense to have a book, but... most modern witches keep a book of shadows, or a grimoire, I believe it's called, which is more like an individual's workbook, journal, or diary, meaningful to the person who keeps it. This book contains rituals, discoveries, spells, poetry, herb lore, etc., and covens usually have a group book of their own. I actually kind of like the fact that you write your own spells.
Yeah.
Like you're not reading scripture, you're writing scripture because it's personal to you. And I've often said, no two people reading any book are going to get the same thing out of a book. It doesn't matter if it's the Bible or a novel. Certain things are going to stand out to you based on your experience, your expectation, your own belief system, all of these things. So it's kind of cool to me that you're writing out what's personal to you and casting it as intention into the universe with the expectation of it returning to you. I like that.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah. You should get into witchcraft.
Should get into witchcraft.
You'd make an awesome witch.
Fireball. Yeah.
No, okay. I take it back. I take it back. You would totally get yourself killed with the rule of 3. All right, but if witches aren't evil and dark magic and all this stuff, why are rituals and ceremonies held at night in the woods? It's a good question, and there's a great answer to it. In the old world,
Satan.
they don't believe in Satan. In the old world, especially within the Celtic tribes, the day followed an entirely different schedule than it does in modern times. We know this from our background. The new day for them begins at sunset. Our days begin at midnight in the West. Not so for ancient peoples. Their days began when the sun went down. This is also why most observances of holidays were celebrated on the evening before the actual calendar day. The second reason is that survival had an entirely different meaning during those times. Almost without exception, everyone spent their daylight hours tending the crops, their herds, or engaged in their trade. There was no electricity or light bulbs. They had to catch the light when they had it. All daylight hours were vitally important simply for survival reasons. Many of those reasons are still true today. Most of us
it was dark, it was dark.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Most people today are busy working all day for a living. The evening's the only time that they have to do it. And as for being in the woods, given that witchcraft is essentially nature worship, it makes sense to perform the rituals in a natural environment.
Well, it would make sense, too.
What's that?
That a lot of these people who practice this were usually on the outskirts of town, because mainstream religions and the churches were in town.
Yeah.
So they had to get away from that.
Yeah, if they were doing this in front of the church, they might get burned at the stake. So, they had to be careful.
Kind of not a good thing.
Not a good thing. And another point I saw was interesting, that since the heavens and the expanse of the universe is more visible at night, and witchcraft is pantheistic,
that makes sense.
it just makes sense.
That
You're
makes
going
sense.
to you're going to go outside when you can see more of God, right? It makes sense. Last one. If witchcraft is not evil, why do its practitioners wear black robes? That's such a
Because they're evil.
That's such an ignorant
Sons
Western
of
question.
Daughters of Satan.
Here's the answer. Black is the combination of all colors and all vibrational rates of light on the material plane. True scientific fact. It is known that black is a very good conductor of energy. Therefore, wearing black simply helps witches absorb natural energy to increase the power of their thought forms. However,
Well, I must be energetic as hell then, because that's about all I wear.
that's true. See, I'm telling you, you'd make a great... If it wasn't for the rule of three and you getting yourself killed because you're always trying to cast dark spells, you'd make a great witch.
Unlimited power.
Wait, wasn't that Disney?
Phenomenal cosmic power!
Itty bitty living space. Aladdin. You're talking about Palpatine?
Oh, yeah.
But, now you're going to like this part. Not all witches wear black robes.
Oh.
Well, hang on. No, you're going to like
What's
it.
the fun in that?
This is the fun in that. In the Wiccan religion, keep in mind this is a like subset, not the whole.
Yeah, subculture.
It's also common to perform rituals while being sky-clad, which means naked.
What?
Many Wiccans believe that performing rituals sky-clad allows power to flow from the body in a manner unimpeded by the clothes. Some also note that it removes signs of social rank and differentiation and thus encourages unity among the practitioners. Some Wiccans seek legitimacy for the practice by stating that various ancient societies perform their rituals while nude. Given that 80% of Wiccans are women.
Okay, so ladies, I think I need to observe this just to kind of learn a little more. So let's just, just cue me in next time.
I'm telling you, dude, you totally need
Like,
to get into
whoa,
witchcraft.
whoa.
You need to get into witchcraft. Particularly Wiccans, because, that's...
It's like, oh man, John, I'd love to come, but man, I gotta, observe this ritual tonight, for the show, for the sake of the show.
For the sake of the show.
Just, whoa.
We don't worry. We won't have that on camera. Primarily because, yeah. All right.
We should.
That is what we have.
For educational
educational
purposes, John.
Totally educational.
Totally.
Yeah, sex ed, that's what that is. That's what we have on witchcraft. But like I said, we have a very special guest that Deasis has interviewed. And we're going to play that interview next. So you can hear from an actual practicing witch what got her into it, why she does it. And you'll notice that she is audio only. And she's going to talk about why she can't come on and show her face.
It has a lot to do with what we've been
And
talking
it has a
about.
lot to do with everything we've been talking about so
about.
far. So let's roll that, and then we'll talk about it.
All right, so we would like to welcome our special guest, Kendra, to the show. And she's going to be telling us a little bit about her personal experience with witchcraft. So, all right. Hey, Kendra.
Hello.
Hey. All right. So first question, what got you into it?
Well, I've always had that interest, watching Disney's movies and stuff. I was always like, magic is cool. But
Yeah.
But what really started it was a couple years ago, I started playing MMORPG games where I ran into a lot of Wiccans and witches, and they really piqued my interest. And I met one, we'll call her Temp for now, because that's what she'd like to be called. And she was really my mentor in that. She helped me find which books to read, websites to look at, and little spells to help me start off.
Okay, cool. So about how long have you been officially doing it? You said you've pretty much always had an interest, but how long would you say you've actually been practicing it?
Officially 2 years.
2 years. Okay. All right, cool. And in those 2 years, do you have any specific examples of manifestations or anything like that?
I mainly focus on healing. So herbal magic, a little bit of chakra work, crystal work. Protection spells are usually a must for me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Protecting, you say protective spells, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, protection from like negative energies.
Interesting. Okay. Tell me a little bit about that. Do you think it works?
Oh, I know it does. Every time I do one on me, I feel a sense of calm and relief. And I've even done protection spells on some of my friends, and they're always like, there's this calm feeling in their soul after I've done it.
Okay. That's really interesting because, I have a decent amount of witch friends, and they talk a lot about deflecting negative energy, the same thing with protective spells. And they talk about, avoiding a low or negative vibrations and
Mm-hmm.
manifesting, I guess, high vibrations, aka positivity
Yeah.
in their lives. Do you feel like do you feel like you've ever been able to practically manifest things that you wanted? Say, like I know a lot of witches, they do love spells and stuff like that, money spells and better job
Mm-hmm.
spells, etc.
Yep, I've done money spells before.
Cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like they work okay?
Well, I did one whenever I really needed some cash because I needed to pay off some credit card debt. And
Right.
that was when I got my, like 2 weeks later, I got my job.
Oh, that's cool. That's really
Mm-hmm.
cool. So I guess you could say it was a manifestation of what you were doing.
Yes. I
Okay.
needed the money and I got a job which provided me that. And
Wow.
sometimes those spells don't work the way you think you want them to, but they do work.
When you said that things don't always work out the way that you expect, could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, if you have like the slightest little bit of doubt when you're performing the spell, then odds are it won't work out really well. Also, there's some people who will probably perform money spells and they expect a wad of cash to come in their hand right away, but instead it comes in a different form, say a raise or a better paying job or a new job opportunity, those kind of things.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So we talked earlier about witches meeting in groups or doing these kind of rituals, in a solitary fashion. So tell us a little bit about that. How do you set up? And is this something that you do on your own, or is this something that you do with a group of witches?
So mostly I'm solitary, but I do have a small circle, as we like to call it.
Cool.
Whereas we're not really exactly a coven, but we do bounce ideas off each other and we help each other out when we can.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So how would you say you set up these rituals? What do you guys do? Do you mix like stuff together? You light candles? I mean, how does all that work?
So personally, I know every witch sets up differently. For
Yeah.
me, I do a circle of salt because salt is for protection. And then I set up a candle for facing north. I set up a candle in the east, south, and west. And then I have those lit when I'm doing my ritual.
That is really interesting. So, okay, a couple of questions, from an outsider here, and maybe you could explain this, witchcraft for dummies. But salt, why the salt and why the candles to the north and, south and all that?
So salt is for protection, which you do need for in case negative energies are around you. You don't want those interfering with your spell. And
Mm,
then north represents earth, east represents air, south represents fire, and west represents water.
cool. That's really neat. Okay. All right. Learn something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so just out of curiosity, um, so you say that the salt wards off the bad spirits. Um, do you know why that is or how that works?
So I know, again, it all ties down that every witch has a different belief system. So
Okay.
some witches do believe that demons are around, whereas others believe it's just negative energies other people produce or the room produces. That's personally my opinion, is there could be negative energies that someone who is in that room may have left behind.
Okay. All right. Wow. Well, that is all very interesting. Would you say that this particular, I don't know if I'd call it a religion, or, I mean, I wouldn't call it not a religion, but would you say that witchcraft is something that is growing or declining from what you've seen?
Oh, it's definitely growing.
That's how I
I've
feel. Yeah.
met so many people who are interested in it now. There's so many that are into Wicca. There's many that are into
Yeah.
paganism. I just see it expanding all the time.
Yeah, I was talking to John about that the other day when we were preparing for this episode. And, I was just telling him, it just seems like, you know, as time goes by, witchcraft is really becoming a very big thing here in the West. I mean, you see, uh, you know, a departure from a lot of the mainstream religions like Christianity, and you really see stuff like witchcraft, voodoo, Wicca, paganism, and other stuff like that really just on the rise. It's really
Yeah,
interesting.
definitely.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it was here before Christianity. And it's always been around. So
Now we were talking a little bit about this, Kendra, and I know that you would probably have a little bit better of an understanding about it, but could you tell us what you feel is the difference between Wicca and witchcraft?
well, this is actually a very easy question. So in Wicca, they take an old Celtic religion belief of the triple goddess and a hunter god, whereas witchcraft does not believe in any gods whatsoever.
Okay. Okay. Is Wicca related to, I mean, I think Wicca is related to paganism, or it's modern day paganism. I
Yes,
don't know
it's
what
under the neo-pagan umbrella.
neo-pagan. Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. A little bit of enlightenment there. So we have been talking about it um, during the episode, me and John, and we were talking about how Christianity has really stigmatized and even demonized um, witchcraft. And so, getting to that, it's, why you're not here, why we can't see you on the screen is very relevant to what we were discussing. So, tell us a little bit about that, Kendra. Why is there no video on this interview? Tell that to the people watching.
Well, my family is super conservative. They're extremely Christian, and they don't exactly know that I don't believe in their beliefs anymore and that I practice witchcraft. And I'm pretty sure if they did know, they would shun me.
So, you're saying that they would shun you and demonize what you do, much like they have done all through the Dark Ages, Reformation, and all of that.
Oh, definitely.
Wow. Yeah, it's a shame to see that some things have still not changed, even in our modern society.
Yep, I know. It definitely sucks.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Well, Kendra, we'd like to thank you for telling us a little bit about what you do and being on the show.
Oh, it's no problem at all.
Ooh, witchy woman, witchy woman. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. My favorite is Creedence Clearwater Revival. I Put a Spell on You.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can't do it.
Because you're mine.
Yeah, I love that song. It's a great.
Don't
song.
be jealous of our singing.
I'm not sure if that was a remake they did or if they were the ones who originally did it.
I
like
remember
CCR.
Bette Midler did it in Hocus
she?
Pocus.
Oh, yeah. Hocus
God.
Pocus, yeah.
Phenomenal singer.
Yeah. Well, that is everything we have today. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. She is really awesome. I like her a lot. I've been talking to her a lot. She's on my Discord We have a Discord server for my other channel, and I've learned a whole lot from her about how it works, what witchcraft is all about, dispelling a lot of the myths. It's very interesting.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, very cool stuff. So I have a newfound respect, especially coming out of that fundamentalist garbage we were raised in.
Absolutely.
I try very hard to learn the actual viewpoint and perspective from the people who really practice the religion before I believe anything about a religion anymore.
Who better to tell us than the people who actually practice it?
Yeah.
Than go by the hearsay.
Yeah, like
and popular opinion of what we've been taught.
If you want to learn about Deasis and what he's really all about, you don't go talk to the people who hate him the most. That's not going. You're not going to get the truth.
That's a good
what
point.
you're going to get an overinflated negative side, and you're not going to hear any of the positives.
I'd say talk to everyone, including me.
Yes.
Negative, positive, good, neutral, everybody.
If you want a well-rounded view of anything, but you have to include the source in that group, or else you're not going to get the full picture. You're just not.
No.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, be sure to click like. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification icon so you'll be notified when we release new videos. If you would like to support us, please support us on Patreon. The link is always in the video description.
To all you witchy women, hit me up. For educational purposes.
Educational purposes
of course.
only, yeah. Okay. And if you have anything that you would like to contribute to the show, or you would like to come on the show and you have a background in something specific, we might even do an episode on it, whatever it is. We had a very interesting comment from a guy named Hanged Man, and I've talked to him before. About Jesus and the Zodiac, and I think you should probably talk to him because he seems like he'd be an interesting guy.
Jesus and the Zodiac, is that the zeitgeist?
Well,
stuff?
no, not exactly. It's sort of, but not exactly. But if anything ever comes to that, we might have to do an episode on that. It's very fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
But as always, thanks for watching.
Perfect.